So I think that one of the most important things about our community is that, and I think I spoke to you about it a little bit earlier, is having people educate each other within our community, right? You have people who have been collecting for 30, 40 years, who have, incredible collections. And then you have folks who have just started their watch collecting journey. They don't know what a tourbillon is or don't know anything about complications, but they want to learn. They're eager to learn, right? So bringing these people together is, to me, it gives me so much pride because I see people create relationships that, let's be honest, these folks would have never started talking to each other if it wasn't for this one common interest. So this one common interest can just really transcend so many different parts of their lives and bring them together in this one place to talk about watches. But one thing that our community does is it's not just about watches. We have a car community. We have a community that also talks about like where to go to eat food, like restaurants, we have a community that embraces cigars. We have a community that, is about family, right? So it's really a place to just kind of just build relationships. And it's more than just the watches. It's about the people that are coming together, and having this one common interest, bring them together to, build relationships for the future.
Yeah.
We're also starting communities in other cities.
Okay.
So it's not just the Atlanta chapter anymore. The Atlanta chapter is like the first chapter. But we just recently started the Watch Society, which is like the larger umbrella. And really the reason I created the Watch Society to be the umbrella around the rest of the community is that we had folks who really liked what we were doing in different parts of the country and even in the world, not yet, but I mean, in the future, want to start communities in other cities just like ours.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. We're my most beautiful queens in the house. We're my most beautiful queens in the house.
Everybody, it's your girl Jamila. This is the Queens Just podcast. Welcome into the Queendom. Today we have a very, very special guest, the founder of the Atlanta Watch Society, Giancarlo Rosselli.
Yes.
Thank you so much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you for doing a show today.
Thank you for having me.
And so you have two very interesting pieces that you have on today. Can you talk a little bit about these pieces that you have on today?
Of course. So right here, I'm wearing a Rolex Daytona.
Okay.
It's a piece that I've wanted. They call it a grail piece when you're a watch collector. So it was something that I was aspiring to for many years, a special piece. And on this wrist here, I have an Omega Seamaster, which was a gift from my wife for our anniversary recently.
Oh, wow.
So that's a very special piece that has a lot of meaning.
Okay.
And then in his little case here, is a watch that actually has a lot of relevance to the Atlanta Watch Society.
Okay.
So this was a watch that we had made with a brand called Formex, which is a Swiss brand.
Okay.
And it is a limited edition watch for the Atlanta Watch Society.
Oh, wow.
So the case back has our logo, and then it does say AWS on the dial. And it's a stone dial, so it's very unique.
Yes,
we
it
wanted
is.
something really unique. If you want to take a look,
Yes,
maybe.
I would. Wow, this is beautiful.
And we made 50 pieces for the community. They sold out within 24 hours.
Formex.
And it was to celebrate our 2-year anniversary as a community.
It's beautiful. It's kind of heavy, too.
It is. It is.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
for sharing
Of
that.
course, of course.
Yeah.
So that's a special piece, obviously, to commemorate our 2-year anniversary, which is now almost 2 years ago. Which
Yeah.
is crazy how time flies.
Yeah, no, those are beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with
course,
the
thank
audience. And so what was your entry point in watch culture? When did that spark happen?
Great question. It definitely started at a very young age, the interest in timepieces. And it was with my grandfather. My grandfather, as I mentioned to you, I think offline, was from Mexico. And I used to spend all my summers in Mexico City as a little boy. And I always remember a gold shiny timepiece on his wrist. So that was when I realized, hey, that's interesting. I like the way that looks. And he would let me play with the watch because he knew that I was always interested. I asked a lot of questions about it. So years later, when I was older, my grandfather had already passed away. My grandmother gifted me the watch when I graduated college. They didn't gift it to me when my grandfather passed away because I was still relatively young, and having a gold timepiece wouldn't have been appropriate for a young boy. But it was something that he had told my grandmother that he knew that I always liked it.
Right.
And I always used to look at it, hold it, and he always admired that I was always paying attention to it. So he wanted me to be the holder of it for the next generation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, man. Just keeping the legacy going.
Keeping the legacy
Keeping
going.
the
So that will
legacy
stay in the
going.
family and go to one of my sons
Oh, no,
one day.
that's important stuff.
One day. It
That's
is.
important.
It is.
And so you know our guy, Perry Dash. Shout
I
out
do.
to Perry Dash.
Love Perry.
Perry Dash of the Risk Check podcast. How did you guys meet? How did you guys link up?
Through the watch community.
Okay.
But specifically through a good friend of ours, mutual friend, Dr. Al Coombs, who's the founder of Official CP Time, which is another watch community.
Okay.
So Dr. Al connected me and Perry. Perry's originally from New York, so am I. So we connected planning an event here in Atlanta about 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
All together. That was really successful, and we've been great friends ever since. We pick each other's brains on community stuff. We chat all the time.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He really is.
Yeah, he's our guy. Now, do you have a specific era or style of watches you particularly like to collect? Is like vintage or modern or anything like that?
So definitely, I have an appreciation for vintage watches, but the only vintage watch I have is my grandfather's Omega Constellation.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if I actually mentioned the watch, but it's an Omega Constellation from the late 1950s. So that is the only vintage watch I have. And I appreciate vintage watches because they tell stories, but my preference definitely is more modern.
Yeah.
More modern pieces that I can wear on a daily basis, that I don't really have to worry too much about getting them wet. I have 3 boys, so I'm a soccer coach. I'm very active in like helping and being involved with their lifestyle. So I need to have something that I could wear on a daily basis, or not to be too scared about beating up a little bit.
Absolutely.
And with vintage watches, you really have to be careful.
You have to be careful.
You do.
Now, would you say that your grandfather's watch is your most valued watch in your collection
100%.
out of everything that
Yes.
you have?
100%.
No, I think that's very telling about your character, the
Thank you.
sentiment of it. I think that's really, really dope. And so what is the most important factor you consider when buying a watch?
I would say,
Or a new watch, I should say. Because you can buy a watch, but you don't know if it's new or if it's
True.
vintage or, pre-loved. And
so I think I'm, like many watch collectors in our community, Perry included, we're very impulsive.
Oh, okay.
So, and one of the
Totally understand.
correct.
Yeah.
So, and one of the, I wouldn't say issues, but one of the situations that comes with being involved in the watch community is you have access to a lot of pieces that you see on a regular basis
Yeah.
through social media, through events that we plan. So we're constantly being fed new watches to look at.
Right.
And of course, then we become enamored with those pieces.
Yeah.
And that means we want them.
You have to
And-
have it.
Exactly.
Right.
To my wife's maybe not anger, but my wife, like every time we have a watch event with a new brand, 2 weeks later, Giancarlo will buy a watch from that brand. So you're the best ROI for this brand.
Oh, my gosh. I'm sure she just loves it.
Yeah. She's like, how many watches are you gonna have?
I don't know.
Yeah. So
Don't know,
I started
dear.
buying her watches, so maybe that'll.
Yeah, maybe she'll get into it too.
Yeah.
She has a couple and she'll understand.
She has, definitely. Yes.
And so I want to know about the work you're doing with the Atlanta Watch Society. And what can you explain to the viewers the mission of the Atlanta Watch Society?
So the mission started a little over 3 years ago.
Okay.
And it was really with me moving down here from New York City. I'm born and raised in New York, moved to Atlanta. And I had been part of a few watch communities up in New York City, but nothing really super organized. So when I came here, I really wanted to like build something from the ground up. I've always been a community person, somebody that loves to bring people together. So I decided to kind of put out in different watch forums that I was starting this community within, this collector forum that I had been a part of, and others that some other folks had told me about, and just posted that we're going to start this community, and people started reaching out. And when people started reaching out, we started to get together. It really kind of all took off when we found a more private space to host events. And the reason we did that was because with watches, you have to be careful.
Absolutely.
Security, right? If you want to build trust with the community, you want to make sure that people feel comfortable
Exactly.
bringing their timepieces.
Exactly.
So that was a really like defining moment in our community when we were able to find a more private space to host events. And then brands started taking notice when we really started pushing things onto social media.
Yeah.
So for me, it was really just creating a safe space for folks to be able to talk about watches, but also more than that, build a community. And really, being new to the city, it was a great way for me to meet new people.
Exactly.
New friends. I didn't have the same friend community anymore now being here after moving from New York.
Yeah.
So just bringing people together was really like at the gist of it.
Absolutely. No, I think that's important. I think that's important work. And so what's the most important factor that you consider? We talked about vintage a little bit, but if this new release is going to drop on January 1st, and the anticipation of it, what is the most important factor for you personally?
For me personally, it's just, it's more of, there has to be some meaning to buying a timepiece now for me.
Okay.
So I mentioned, and I joked earlier about being a little bit impulsive, right? When it comes to buying timepieces. But now I feel I've gotten to the point in my collecting journey where I really want there to be significance around a timepiece. So, for example, the watch that I'm wearing here is a Rolex Daytona. This watch was a defining watch in my life because it's a very hard watch to get at retail from Rolex. So I had built a relationship with this Rolex authorized dealer here in Atlanta to be able to finally get this watch that was on my waiting list. I had a list of watches that I wanted. This was the one that was at the top, but it was the hardest to get. So I was able to get this watch around the time that I got promoted at work. So it really kind of defined a special moment in time for me. And then I also brought one of my sons with me to be there with me when I purchased the watch, so that he understands that one day that's going to be his watch. So I wanted him there with me to understand that you have to work hard in life, and working hard in life does reward you at times. And this is more than just a material good.
Right.
It really is something that means more to you for the future. It was Dad's after a real defining moment in his career, and Dad wants you to have it one day to be able to caretake it.
So there's meaning tied to it.
Correct.
Absolutely. And so, I remember talking to Perry off camera. He talked about it being an investment too for your children.
Correct. Yes.
Because they'll appreciate and value over
Yes.
time, just like artwork or any other.
Correct.
Item, not just luxury item, but other items that have a lot of value.
Correct.
And things like that. And so what are some common mistakes that new watch collectors make?
I would say buying something just because somebody else told you to buy it.
Oh, and not researching
or just maybe seeing somebody wearing it, like an actor or a singer or something that, you see on somebody else, but then when you wear it, it's not something that maybe you liked.
Yeah.
So like an impulse buy. That's why, like I said, I've kind of grown now to not be this impulse buyer, to really be more thoughtful when purchasing a watch. So I think for any new watch collectors, I always tell them, buy what you like.
Right.
Don't buy what somebody else tells you.
Exactly.
To buy, right?
Exactly.
Obviously, always do your research, so you're buying a watch, you're not getting ripped off.
Because there's scammers out there.
Right? But, do your
Online
research.
and
and I think part of our community is helping folks who are new to the watch collecting world understand what's a value piece, what's not, what is something that you should purchase at retail, what's something that you maybe should buy from the gray market, because buying it at retail may be $5,000-$7,000 more, but you can get it on the gray market from a legitimate seller for less money. So why would you buy it from the authorized dealer? So you really want to make sure that people understand that, right?
You got to be educated.
You got to be
and
educated.
make smart decisions.
Correct.
Or you'll be wasting money and
Yes.
time and
Correct.
energy.
Correct. So education's a big part of the community as well.
Absolutely.
Educating folks.
Absolutely. And so I want to know if there is a brand that is on the rise that we need to be on the lookout for. You might know. That
definitely. There's a few.
Okay.
But I would say that my favorite is Moser.
Okay.
So it's a Swiss brand. I didn't bring the watch. I do have a Moser watch. I don't have it with me today. I'll send you pictures so you can maybe, show the folks if they're interested. But it's a brand from Switzerland. It's two brothers and a sister whose father was in the watch industry for many years. And they came together to buy this one company, an old Swiss brand. They kind of revived it. It had been dormant for several years. And they've taken this brand to new heights. They've really put it back on the map after, years of it being dormant. And they're doing things in a very modern way, tasteful, but also with nods to history. So
Okay.
that's what I really like. And they make their own, movements. They make their own cases, dials, and they're an incredible brand.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to check out Moser. Okay. And so I have a question that's a little bit more personal.
Of course.
Let's say you get invited to, you ever heard of the Michael Rubin White Party?
Yes. Yes.
Let's say you get your invitation. You're like, oh, okay. Everyone always talks about the watches that they see at the Michael Rubin White Party. What would you pick out to wear what's your dream watch for the Michael Rubin Party?
Well, it would have to be with some, and it'd have to have some white in it, right?
Right.
I would say there's an IWC, and I don't, I'm going to hate myself for now remembering the reference, but it's a big pilot.
Okay.
Big pilot meaning that's the type of watch that it is.
Okay.
And it's it's all white, and the strap is white.
Oh, okay.
So that would probably be one. But then this watch actually, but with the white dial.
Oh.
So this Rolex Daytona also comes in a white dial. I have the black dial version.
Okay.
So like a white dial.
Okay. To keep in with the theme of the
To keep
party.
in with the theme. I like to match. So
Oh yeah,
gotta try to
no.
match.
I think that would be incredible. And so how do you gauge value when you're considering a timepiece? Like what can you explain to the viewers the importance of the loom? Like we talked about loom once, and the mechanics of it and things like that. What's the most important part when gauging a timepiece?
I would say that, first you have to like it.
Yeah.
But for me, movements are really important.
Movements.
So the movement of the watch, it's like a car. It's like the engine of the watch. Yeah, it is the engine of the watch.
Yeah.
So making sure that you have, done your research on the movement itself. The movement makes the watch tick. So it's extremely important that's probably the most important piece of real estate on the watch that you need to care about. But then the design of the watch is important. So the case, the finishing. If you're buying new, then you don't have to worry about being in great condition. Okay. But if you are buying something that's pre-loved or vintage, you want to make sure that the case is in great condition, that the watch is all original. So one thing that'll happen that people should really be careful about when buying from people online that maybe are not reputable sellers is understanding that there's a lot of people out there that unfortunately want to do wrong.
Right.
And, you have to be careful. You may be buying a Rolex, but the movement inside may have been manipulated to have different parts that may not be all original.
Right.
Now, if that's disclosed to you and you don't mind, then that's fine. But if they're not disclosing that to you, then that's an issue.
Right.
Right? So-
You got to be upfront and honest.
Yes.
And so, which brands do you focus on collecting as a collector? Or do
Again,
you go after a particular brand, or
not
just
really.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
honestly, I'm really, varied in my taste.
Okay.
And there's always new brands, a lot of Swiss brands, or even brands from other parts of the world that are independent, that are not tied to a larger conglomerate like Rolex or other brands that you've heard of. Right. A lot of independent brands are where I'm really seeing the future go with watch collecting, at least for me. I find like Moser's an independent, family-owned brand. I really like the family-owned aspect of a brand. So those are the brands that I'm really leaning more towards recently.
Why do you think that watches are so expensive?
Well, it depends on the watch itself. Most watches, especially on the higher end, like a tourbillon or a minute repeater, these watches are all handcrafted, handmade. The movements, the dials, everything's done by a Swiss artisan, German artisan, Japanese artisan. These are the three countries that really focus on manufacturing. It's all done by hand. So that really, obviously, anything done by hand always adds a significant amount of cost to the bottom line of the watch.
Right.
So the watch being sold.
So the time put into the time.
The time, yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's not something that's on a conveyor belt.
Yeah. It's very, very, very intentional.
Correct.
So very intentional. And so minorities in luxury spaces, we talked a little bit about off camera, and I appreciate the work that you're doing in the realm of inclusivity. And so could you please talk a little bit about why you are so intentional about including minorities in the Atlanta Watch Society?
Definitely. Well, I'm a minority myself.
Absolutely.
My mom is from Mexico. I take great pride in my heritage, and I take great pride in bringing people together from all walks of life. And for me, that's the number one most important part of our community is bringing everybody together.
Right.
Bringing people, be it, the color of their skin or from, different economic points of their life, bringing everybody together is extremely important. So having people who are collectors of tourbillon watches, minute repeaters, who then will also have conversations and have this commonality with folks who collect Casio G-Shocks. That's what our community is all about, bringing folks together from everywhere, any different type of collector. It's extremely important for me because that's the type of collector that I am.
Absolutely.
For me, I've always been the type of person that, growing up in New York City, I've always been surrounded by people from everywhere. And I just feel that that's really something that was needed in the watch community.
Yeah.
And Perry will tell you this, our good friend Perry, and then even my friend Al Coombs from Official CP Time will tell you the same, that, many minorities felt underrepresented in the watch marketing community, right?
It's a luxury space.
It's a luxury space. So like you wouldn't see.
So it's a club mentality.
Correct.
Sometimes, well, in the older days and in some spaces.
Correct. Correct.
You
So
don't
now
see people that look like us.
it's true.
Too many.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it actually resonated with a good friend of mine, Ricardo, who mentioned it to me once. He's like, I love watches, but it would be great to see somebody that looks like me.
Exactly.
He's Haitian American. He's like, it would be great to see somebody that looks like me wearing a watch. I haven't actually seen that.
Yeah.
And now years later, the community and the watch manufacturers have realized that this is something that is extremely important. And you're seeing it more and more, like with the communities that are being built, like ours, like what Perry's been doing with his great work, the folks from CP Time, and then the actual brands themselves recognizing that they really need to market their brands to everyone.
Absolutely. Why should white guys have all the fun?
I agree. It's true. You're right.
Come on. There's space for everyone.
For everybody. Always.
And so I follow you on social media. I follow the movement. I'm a fan of your work and what you're doing. Would you mind sharing your social media platform with your viewers?
Sure.
Okay.
So Atlanta Watch Society is where we're at. That's the community page. Instagram, that's where we post about most of our events that we do at brands or our community get-togethers where it's just the collectors getting together. And then I have also my own account, which is a watch account called Gentiloggio, which is actually a play on words in Italian. So, because my father's from Italy, my mom is from Mexico. So gentiluomo in Italian is gentleman. So gentil is the shortened version of that. And then orologio is Italian for watch.
I love it.
So Gentiloggio was like a way of me kind of combining both. I thought it was neat, and it stuck.
Come on with the creativity.
Yeah. So most people can't pronounce it right. Some people say Gentiloggio, but I always
that.
kindly correct and guide them the right way. But it's I think it was a nice play on words, especially with the gentleman aspect, which obviously I take great pride in trying to be the best man that I can be, and then also obviously the watch aspect, which was why I built the account.
Yeah, no, I think that's so cool.
Thank
You're
you.
such a cool guy.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
No, thank you so much. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
I understand how busy you are, and we're so thankful that you could be here today.
It's an honor.
Giancarlo.
You said it extremely well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamila.
For being on the Queen's Address today. And thank you for tuning in.
Appreciate
Peace
it.
King, Peace Queen.